And so I think when a brand gets to a level where their spend goals require them to have like this constant output of creative, then that means that as an organization, as just like a workflow that they need internally, it becomes pretty important to sort of bridge the gap between what happens on the media buying side and what happens on the creative side. And so that might mean like you're running a weekly meeting where the media buying team and the creative team are getting together. Sometimes those are in-house folks, external partners, consultants, like you name it. It can look in all kinds of different ways. But once that workflow of trying to bridge the gap between what happens on the creative side and the data side starts to become a pain that you feel as a brand, and I think it's pretty obvious when you feel it, once you start crossing that like 50K a month in spend threshold, then that workflow becomes really important. And then motion helps a lot with that. And so you could go and like, spend that hour meeting as a team, poking through Facebook Ads Manager and trying to like make sense of it. But like to your point about DCOs earlier, or like however you have your campaign set up in Facebook or TikTok or other places, often the same creative is running in a bunch of different campaigns anyway, and so you want to aggregate them. So it's hard to do that in platform. And so often the step that we see people doing before motion is when they realize, wait, I can't actually do the kind of analysis that I want in platform. Let me export this to a spreadsheet and start doing some like nerdy pivot table data analysis stuff. And like that starts to be the phase that we see people are doing before they get into motion. And then the problem with that is like, A, not everybody on the team is a spreadsheet whiz. And B, the problem with spreadsheets is like, it's not a great environment for visual analysis. It's not a great place to like consume an ad and play it and watch it as a team and like talk about it. Because all you see is like rows of text and data. It's very hard to get like visual content incorporated into a spreadsheet. And especially in this era of like remote work where we're using Slack, we're building decks, you want to make it so that the information about what's working and what's not is as easy to put together as possible and as easy to consume as possible for everybody else. So you might have like a video editor on your team or an influencer that you're working with or all kinds of different partners. And you want the information not just to be like a personal solo analysis. You want the analysis to also now move so that other people can also get on the same page about what's working and what's not. And so I think as soon as you get into the mode of like trying to distill insights on what's working and what's not creatively and communicate that with other people, you're starting to get into a pain point that motion does a really good job at solving. And so I think if any of that sounds like the situation that somebody's in, chances are that motion would make their lives and their team's lives much, much better.
I want to say from the agency side, because I think about 30%-ish of people, it's hard to know on podcast stats, right? But I think about 30% of the people that listen to this are agency owners. My close rate when I'm doing sales, I occasionally will do sales for bigger clients, when we need to bring some other expertise sort of in. My close rate is almost 100%. I can't think of anyone who I've done a motion walkthrough and been able to communicate what is going on with their creative in a half-hour session that I have not closed as a client. It's crazy because communication is what it's all about, right? If you guys look in the background here, agencies suck, right? There's a lot of reasons why, right? And I'm sure you'd say that too, as I don't know if you still, are an owner over there or not, but it is inherent that agencies suck. And one of the reasons why is this lack of communication of what is actually going on, right? And motion for us just helps us with that. Right? It's like, it's so easy for us to show, hey, here's the aggregate of this one. And I love the call out on that, right? Aggregating that creative that you're running in multiple different ad sets or campaigns is so ridiculously powerful. That alone is like the reason why I use motion is like that the aggregate of that data is so ridiculously important because it tells us if the creative is actually driving incremental revenue or not, right? Well, maybe incrementality is a little hard, but whether it's driving results in some sort of meaningful kind of way. I want to ask you a question here. It's kind of fun. You get one piece of data that you can pull in motion. That's it. What is it? That's going to tell you whether or not that ad is going to succeed or not.
I'd say spend.
Spend. Interesting.
I'd start with spend.
Okay. What? That's not what I was thinking. Okay. Well, I want to hear why.
Well, spend to me is number one because the job that I think most people are trying to do in all of this, like the media buying, the creative strategy, is like you want to produce winners that scale, right? You want to produce, like everybody has these creatives in their ad account. It's like, man, this one just keeps crushing. It's been crushing for months. And if something is performing and then it fizzles out, what's the point, right? And often like you can set up your campaign structures in all kinds of different ways. I know like the cost cap way versus like other ways, but like regardless of how you do it, what you're looking for is you want Facebook to deliver spend to your creative. That's usually like the number one question. Like the first stop question is like, did this thing even get picked up by the algos? Like, did it run? Is it resonating? Is it scaling? Is it delivering spend? And the secondary question is like, is it doing so within our targets? Like, is it doing it in a way that's like sustainable and that's meeting our?
Let's talk a secondary metric then, because I love the spend idea. I immediately, like when you said it, I was like, I think I get, because really it's like, what is the robot liking right now? Right? Because it's way smarter than we are. Like it knows what will resonate, because the job of Meta is to get you sales and to also make the news feed or wherever people are consuming a great experience so they continue to come back, even though they're being served up one ad out of every three, three things that they see. We still go back because we love it, right? It does something to us. But that algo is so ridiculously smart that it's going to put spend behind the things that are actually going to have that confluence there. What's the secondary metric?
I guess the secondary metric really depends on the type of business, right? Like an e-commerce brand might be ROAS or cost per purchase. Like that tends to be the two most important ones. I think it's really important to root everything in like real business outcomes, like real revenue. I'm a big fan of the soft metrics. I know there's like a big debate around, like we had Taylor Holiday at our creative strategy summit, and we had this like whole debate around like, do creative metrics even matter? Things like thumb stop, video watch rate, like all of those things I actually think are super important, but everything serves the revenue goal. And like I think it's really important to be laser focused as a business on, we want to deliver spend, we want to deliver spend efficiently in a way that hits our targets. And then everything else is a question of like, how do we achieve that? How do we do more of that? But I think those two are like the gold standard. And then everything else is trying to play detective to figure out why. Why is this one scaling at this spend threshold and this like efficiency, this performance threshold that we're really happy about, and trying to uncover why that is or why it's not working. But I'd say spend number one, and then ROAS or cost per purchase as metric number two if you're an e-commerce brand.